Hey everyone, I burned the midnight oil because, actually the morning oil, because I found the document for the January 3rd Clark County Zoning Commission meeting that is written as if it were the development agreement, but it is not the Oakland Raiders Las Vegas NFL UNLV Stadium development agreement at all. What it is a proposed infrastructure and transportation development agreement that was introduced by Steve Sisolak, was written on December 20th. So obviously someone was burning the midnight oil, but the agreement has some major problems. There is, and I'll boil it down to this, there's nothing in the language of the proposed agreement that ties it to the Southern Nevada Tourism and Investment Act. Nothing. There's nothing that ties it to the SNTIA, which is the law that enabled the stadium, the bond issue, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, Convention Center expansion, and so on. Nothing. But with respect to the stadium, the SNTIA, the law itself, has some items in it that you may remember if you paid attention to this process. For example, the law says the Raiders have to pay an adequate amount for off-site transportation infrastructure improvement, right? Well, the proposed infrastructure development agreement has the Raiders doing just that, but it doesn't refer to the state law. The development agreement as proposed by the infrastructure development agreement that's proposed by Clark County Planning Department and led by Steve Sisolak basically has the county in the position of making approvals and essentially giving rise to the project. It says nothing about the SNTIA, nothing about the state's involvement, and nothing at all about where the stadium authority itself fits in to the execution of the directives that are listed in the Clark County proposed infrastructure development agreement. For example, section 29H concerns the transportation part that I'm talking about. There's no reference to section 29H of the SNTIA. Nothing. There's, in the proposed document from Clark County, there's section 201, I believe it's C, 201C, talks about government assignments. In other words, government enabling powers. What gives the government the right to do what it's doing? It doesn't at all mention the SNTIA at all. See, it's sloppy. It's as if Steve Sisolak was saying, hey, you know what, we're behind on producing our documents and getting them approved, and I'm lighting a fire, and so I'm writing this document, or I'm having the staff write the document, which is Nancy Odbudson, who's the head of planning, and I'm going to take this to the zoning board, I'm going to run it through by myself. That's what it looks like. It looks like he's frustrated, like it's like a fit of pick. That's what it looks like in legislative form. But in so doing, it creates a left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. The left hand is Clark County. The right hand is the Stadium Authority. Even, and not only that, UNLV isn't even mentioned. So UNLV will never see this document. They have no idea. And originally the stadium was supposed to be, what, Raiders and UNLV, right? This is messed up, to say the least. It is messed up. And I don't understand the rush to get this done. I don't understand why some parties are falling all over themselves to push this through in such a sloppy fashion. Anyway, what I've done is I've provided the text, what this document needs to be is rewritten from scratch, and it needs to be brought in compliance with the law. In other words, every part where it lists why the county is doing this, or where it lists why the Raiders have to pay for certain actions like highways or transportation. All that needs to be tied back into Senate Bill 1. Every other document that has been produced with respect to the stadium to date that had to do with the developer taking action has referred to the SNTIA, and that process, that habit, if you will, has to be maintained here. Otherwise, you have this rogue document that's out there that someone can use and say, hey, this is the county's, and oh, you know, the state said that. Oh, we didn't know that. We approved this. What are you talking about the SNTIA? What's that? Oh, well, the SNTIA just happens to be the document that approves the bond issue. Here's another example, okay? When it has to do with, when it talks about the proposed Clark County infrastructure development and transportation development proposal, agreement, excuse me, that document, when it refers to land transfer, it says nothing about approval by the Stadium Authority Board. Nothing. It refers to the county. Well, the SNTIA refers to the Stadium Authority Board and not the county, because you have to have the Stadium Authority to get the land before you can issue the bonds, before you can get the county to issue the bonds. That's the way the process works. So this document needs to be rewritten from scratch. It is wrong. It is completely wrong. All right, stay tuned and subscribe to Zenny62 on YouTube.